Now arriving on RFD TV, The Train Show. All aboard!
Hi, my name's Dave Miller. I'm from Ohio, Toledo area, and I'm here with Rob Albritton and Rob Clues, and we're all here to put together the biggest Z-scale module, and this is my contribution. This is a Sunoco refinery over here, which has a separate inside loop to run trains inside the refinery. And this here is the area for the Z-Track mod to hook up with everybody else's modules and run trains. When you're doing a refinery, basically you have to start out with a plan. I work right near and have access to a BP refinery, so I did a lot of research and laid out my plan on the board here, and then figured out where I wanted to put things, and then just started piping it up and started basically piping the tanks and working backwards to the refinery area, and then putting in the refinery pieces.
Where do you get your parts? How much of this is scratch built?
A major portion of these, I'd say 80% of the parts, are from a company called C-Rails. C-Rails puts out the tanks and a lot of the larger refinery pieces, the distillers and the cracking towers and the storage tanks. This here is a Concord kit that I put together. It's N scale, but it fits for this size of a refinery. I scratch built the burn-off tower, and it works. Over here are N-scale refining tanks, but they match up nicely with the tops of the Z-scale tank cars. This here's a refueling barge, and it's simulating being in a river at the refinery. I use Envirotech's two-part epoxy extensively for how I make my water. The track is all Markland track with switches, and over here we can see the pet coke pile. That's real pet coke from a refinery after they've distilled all the fuel and gases that they can possibly get out of it. The pet coke is real pet coke from a refinery. After all, petroleum coke is the refuse that needs to be sent to a dump or burnt off in some sort of refuse furnace. And they take it out of the coking towers, and they either have to load it right into tank cars or put it off to the side in piles where they can load it into hopper cars. My trees are made from a weed called meadowsweet. There's a combination of trees, woodland scenics trees. The pine trees are hecky trees, and the other is meadowsweet. The meadowsweet is a weed, and I just take the woodland scenics ground foam and hairspray and build them up until I like what I see, and then stick it in the ground.
Okay, and tell us about, where do you buy this weed?
You can find Woodland Scenics products at almost any...
no, that other weed.
Okay. The meadowsweet is kind of special. It's only can be found in high elevations. I've picked thousands of trees already, and they're in bags from the Berkshire Mountains in Massachusetts at the very high elevations in the mountains. Meadowsweet only grows at those high elevations. There are a number of other different weeds that can be used to make trees. It's just that I like these, and so I kind of specialize in these. The technique for building my waterfalls was I had to sculpt out of the foam the basic layout for the waterfalls in the river. The river comes in, and then I used plaster casting rock to make the drop-offs. From the drop-offs, once that was all in place, I plastered everything to make it nice and scenic the way I wanted it, the form and the shape. Then there were gaps behind the drop-offs for the falls, and you glue either using clear tub caulk, which I've used for the waterfalls. You glue the saran wrap to the top and the bottom, let it dry real good, and then let it dry real good here. You have to paint the bottom of the river. You have to paint the rocks. White is used extensively underneath the caulking for the rocks at all levels and along the sides. Then you put your bathtub caulking over the saran wrap and up over the lips so that it forms the shape that you want. You use a little bit at a time, use the paper clip or whatever to move it into the positions that you want it to move into, and just keep working a small section at a time with the bathtub caulk into all the areas that you want. After I've made the waterfalls, I poured the top river and the lake at the bottom with 2-part epoxy and Virotex. After I painted the bottoms whatever color I wanted to paint them, and while I was pouring the Envirotex, I used a paintbrush and I brushed over the clear bathtub caulking to get the nice shine for the water on the waterfalls, and it's basically covered over with a very thin coat of Envirotex.
Do you have to seal the paint before you put Envirotex on?
The foam needs to be painted. You can use a latex paint or an acrylic paint, which is what I use to paint the bottom, and that seals the foam nicely. You can also use just Elmer's glue to seal the foam before you pour the Envirotex and then paint the glue, or as I did, I just painted the foam and that was good enough. It's better to use the glue than paint the glue.
When contacting our sponsors, please mention the show. And thanks for tuning in to The Train Show.